Hello everybody, welcome to SketchCraft Live, X-Men Apocalypse Spoilers Recap. Joining me tonight to complain about this movie is Brandon Let Heavy James. Hello.
Hello.
Alright, so let's just get right through. If you haven't seen the movie, don't bother. But if you have seen it and you feel down and you want to come and complain, welcome to the show. So, Brandon, you saw this movie last weekend for your birthday, I thought?
No. That was a different movie, but
Different movie.
I did see the movie this weekend, yes.
It's your birthday every weekend for me. And then I saw the movie last night with our good buddy Kyle from the chat. Kyle's a fan of the show, and he buys commissions. So anytime I'm up in LA, I got fucking stuff I do up there. And then sometimes I go to screenings of films and everything. I invited Kyle to come see this because sometimes you just don't want to be alone. You know, like in the massacre.
When disaster strikes, you just don't want to be alone. You want to cry with someone next to you.
Yeah. And so just give a shout out to the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith. Jeff Goldsmith has a podcast called The Q&A where he goes, and for years now he's been doing this, where he goes and he screens films and he brings in writers, usually the screenwriters, sometimes producers, directors, but usually the screenwriters. Here's a quick visual. Here's this podcast here on iTunes. So this actual screening that I went to of X-Men Apocalypse with the Q&A with Simon Kinberg, the executive producer and screenwriter Simon Kinberg, will be up on his iTunes sometime next week. It usually takes him about a week to get it up. So I suggest you check it out. There's tons of different Q&As he's done here. I've been to a lot of these actually, so I'm in the crowd. Somewhere in there, if you hear laughter, that's me. If you barely hear complaints underneath the breath, that might be me too. But we'll come back to this. Generally, I have a great time. But this time I knew the movie was troubled, and I figured, well, if I'm going to see it, I may as well be able to go there and help talk a little bit about, maybe get some answers, be in the room. And I got to give major props to Simon Kinberg, because that was a very uncomfortable room for him to be in. We were all there. You know, no one ever comes into these rooms, Brandon, to get eviscerated, right? It's not a roast.
Right.
And everyone there is, half of them are film students, you know, aspiring screenwriters, current screenwriters, or, you know, there's a few that just show up for the free fucking movie, and those people, I had to sit next to one this time, and we all pay our dues. Trust me, it was a little suffering to be next to this person. I get past it. That being said, you know, they got to be careful, because whatever they say, especially a movie that's out this weekend, you know, like just came out, whatever they say can be used, manipulated, construed, and you know,
Yeah.
to choke hold their career, it could end their career. And
Oh yeah, it could ruin people's lives, jobs, everything. I mean,
so Mr. Kinberg or Simon or whatever, Simon Kinberg, he was very. You'll hear it yourself if you listen to the full interview. He was very complimentary to the fact that if there was something that he was like, look, if I say this, like someone would ask him, would you ever consider using a villain for a feature film? He'd go, look, if I say yes, then the whole internet's going to be Simon Kinberg confirms the next villain for X-Men fucking 5 will be, you know, he's like, so anytime he veered into territory for things that obviously he would consider or could be, but really isn't the answer, he was very careful to preface with, this is not, you know, a headline for every clickbait site in the world, you know?
right. Please don't make this a hashtag.
Yeah, and I just felt he was being diplomatic throughout the entire time, but I think he was also being fair, and I gotta be honest, he didn't even throw himself under the bus. You know, so it's not like a guy who comes in and goes, "It's my fucking movie. That's right, eat it." You know, just fucking shovel this shit. You know, like you like it. It's not him. You know, he's not that kind of guy. So I really appreciate, as you know, as honest as you can be. I personally never ask questions during Q&As, folks. One, I've had my day. I had years at Comic-Con to ask every question I could think of. I've never been in a QA where someone didn't ask a question that I didn't already think of, or even if they did, I just always felt like it's a question I don't think can be answered. So I got a few questions. We're going to talk in no discernible order about this movie. I'm not going to walk through it all the way through. We're just going to get through what
Right.
you liked, what you didn't like. But I do want to
Just
say I had some questions.
one list will be longer than the other.
Yeah, I had some questions I wanted to ask, but I knew he would never answer. Like,
Hmm.
who are Nightcrawler's parents now? Like, like he's not going to answer that. Um, he did answer certain questions like, the bow and arrow thing, but I'm just going to go through, let me just go through what you like and then I'll talk back off you. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just feed back off and sort of answer. So tell me what you like, didn't like. Go for it, Brandon.
All right. Well, what I liked, because this will be the shorter part, um, it wasn't necessary, but I did like seeing Wolverine actually in it. I wish they didn't show it in the trailer. I wish I would have been completely surprised by his appearance. I I don't think it was necessary. Just like one thing I hated, I don't think it was necessary to take them to that base other than to show Wolverine escaping. But I like seeing Wolverine actually. This sounds bad, but stab and cut through people and be actually Wolverine compared to the other movies where he would do stuff, but it'd be off camera, or his claws would go into somebody and nothing with no blood, no nothing. So I thought it was cool to actually see them amp up the Wolverine, which I'm guessing they're gonna make the next Wolverine movie probably rated R. That's why they probably made him a little more gory in this movie. Um, I really liked Magneto's story, like his whole has a wife, has a settled down, has a kid, just trying to be a normal worker kind of guy. Fassbender was awesome. I mean, he really when his kid died, and his wife, like it's like fuck, yeah, he really just you could see his pain, like he really channeled loss, and it was just good acting. I thought he honed it in for me. I liked it. Uh, Shit. Anything else I liked? I can't think of anything else I liked at the moment. If you wanna, you
Well, let's
wanna
talk
chime in.
about a few things like this. So, um, Fassbender and the whole Magneto storyline. Now, I have a real problem, right, with, let's get into some story construction. I have a problem with romantic comedies, okay?
Okay.
Romantic comedy sequels, to be specific. Because what happens is you get a movie. You ever see a movie called Romancing the Stone? Michael
Yes.
Douglas and
Long
Kathleen
time ago.
Turner? Long
Long.
time ago, right? It's a great romantic comedy. They made a sequel called Jewel of the Nile, where at the beginning of the Jewel of the Nile, at the end of everything that happened in the previous movie, now they're not together at the beginning of Jewel of the Nile. So now you got to go through this movie. They have to rediscover one another. And
Right.
this comes from the idea that at a story, your story should begin with your characters when you pick up the furthest they were the last time we met them. I don't believe that. That's the Metroid idea. That's the idea where you get a taste of all these powers, and then when the game starts, you don't get any of those powers back. You have to go and recollect all the powers, and that works fine once, okay? And they
Uh,
did this in Days of the Future Past, and I thought that it was smart that when they did that, um, that Wolverine was able to help solidify them, and then by getting everyone together and getting actually opposing sides, one way or another, right?
right.
That it sort of, righted the future. And now we start a movie where this film is as far away. It's almost as if the events of Days of Future Past never happened,
Right.
And Simon Kinberg did talk about that. And they asked about the Magneto thing. Why does Magneto have a wife and kid? And he's like, well, we thought about what the furthest place they could be, you know, from the last film.
Hmm.
And it turns out Michael Fassbender, I think, had that idea. I remember right. He just said it on a plane. They're like, wow, that'd be an idea. And when they got off the plane, they're like, yeah, that's the way we're gonna go. And I don't think that's the way. Like, look, man, I'm not gonna tell $1 million dude how to do his fucking job, but I have read enough stories to know that perhaps in this day and age, you should take what happened in the last movie and build off that.
Right.
Like he dropped a stadium on the White House, and in this movie, he's living out in the forest with his family and working a job. Like, I mean, what? Like it just that just doesn't make any sense. That's something that you do out of cleverness because what happens is we decided we're going to use a villain. Let me tell you what I feel happened, right, with this film,
Hmm.
and this is another question I could not ask Simon Kinberg because he wouldn't answer it. Is this film to me feels like the most expensive recap episode of a TV show or an anime I have ever seen. It's a $200 million recap episode.
Yeah.
wherein that you have this in recap episodes. If you watch Friends or One Punch Man, or not, did they do a recap in One? They didn't do it in One Punch, but they do it in a lot of anime. The best ever is Kill La Kill because they do the whole recap in the opening 30 seconds. It's hilarious.
Right.
But most recaps are an entire episode where they have this loose story and then they show you scenes from the other episodes. And is that a bad story they tell you during those in between the recaps? No. But is it ever on anyone's list of, man, that was really fucking amazing? Like
Right.
never. It's called forgettable. And
Yeah.
so, it simultaneously recaps the last whatever movies minus X-Men 3, right?
Hmm.
And I'm wearing my X-Men 2 United shirt, by the way. I got when I went to the premiere of X-Men 2. So I care, folks. While simultaneously talking to you about things if you've seen these other movies, then you already know what this other shit is. Case in point, I don't ever need to see any character in an X-Men film walk into Cerebro and be amazed by the people walking around. Like
Right.
I don't need to see it. I don't need to be like, whoa, what's this? Oh, well, motherfucker. You know something? Here, folks. You know something? This is not 1999 or 2002, okay? I got a motherfucking VR set now, okay? I got the shit in my house. Like we're not impressed by this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and we don't need to delete whole scenes. There was a whole scene where they went to the mall. It's in the fucking commercials. Okay? It's not in the movie.
That's the one part you were looking forward to,
They
too. You
cut it
wanted to
out. Oh,
see
right,
the
yeah, I know.
80s
They cut it
mall.
out only to show Moira McTaggart go, oh, what's this? They just keep, and it goes, this is Cerebro. We know! Like, come on, man! Like, we fucking know! So, like, what it felt to me was they were contractually obligated to make an X-Men movie by a certain amount of time where they lose the rights.
Right.
And how am I supposed to ask Simon Kinberg that? Because someone asked him when I was there if they had the rights to the Celestials, which if you know anything about Apocalypse and aliens and all that shit, like, perhaps it's celestial technology and shit. And it's like, he was like, I can't answer that. No comment. He's not going to talk
Right.
about whether Fox has the rights or, no one's going to have this conversation because rightfully so, they'd fucking lose their job or possibly even get sued.
Yeah.
So they're just not going to say shit. They're underbound by a contract. They can't talk about that. But that's what this movie felt like. Like, okay, we need a movie quick. Okay, it has to be in production. It has to be out by a certain date, or we're gonna lose it. So let's make. What we got next? Well, I want to do. I know Bryan Singer wants to do his Phoenix movie because that fucking shit got fucked up in X-Men 3.
Yeah.
But we don't really have Jean. We got to introduce Jean Grey, right? So we need another villain between then. We'll do Apocalypse. Oh, we'll call it the Apocalypse. Like it was really just like they just sat around and they didn't know what to do with it. I'll tell you something else. You said you like Wolverine in the movie, and this is some nifty little info. Simon Kinberg said that one of the initial idea for Wolverine in the movie was that they'd find him and he'd go back and teach the kids how to be X-Men. That he'd be like a drill sergeant position, you know. But they're
Yeah.
like, well, that just kind of feels weird because he just got out of the cage and shit. Like,
Right.
like it just, and then we got the kids marching. Like it just,
Yeah.
like it's just they didn't know what to do, man. And I'm like, this movie feels like a bunch of ideas that they then need another year, to coalesce into an actual film because it doesn't explain what Apocalypse motivations are. He just says, I do things because I do things and you're weak,
He is
Like,
Apocalypse is my all time favorite villain, and in this movie, he's a fucking motivational speaker. Like that's all he does. He's
but
just
he's
like,
not even like Apocalypse. Like Simon Kimber said, well, maybe we didn't do a good job of explaining that Apocalypse, feels that anyone who's strong enough should survive. It could be a human, it could be a mutant. I'm like, is that right, Brandon? Is that how
no,
he's in the?
no.
No, he believes mutants. That's it. They're
Mutants is the
gods.
hierarchy, strongest survival of the fittest, and then that only includes mutants, and humans are just waste to him.
I don't think they get. I don't think they got this villain. I
No.
just don't. I don't think
He
they
wasn't
got.
even the villain. They made Magneto the villain. Magneto's the one who
Well,
ripped up the Earth and the polar capsules and all that other shit flying around the Earth. Well, Magneto just wanted a body swap. He just wanted a better
Well, I'll
body.
tell you. So now he's got a wife and kid, which we don't give a shit about because we're with them for 2 seconds, and then oh, they
Right.
mistakenly get killed with the bow and arrow. Which I got to be honest, I watched this. I didn't know how the death was coming, so I didn't come in here. I didn't read any of the forums. I don't watch the fucking
Right.
commercials. I watched the one trailer for a movie, and that's it. Sometimes two if I hate what I saw in the first trailer. If a movie doesn't sell me the first time, I have to go to the second trailer. Okay, that's how it works. If it sells me on the first trailer, I'm done because I don't want to get spoiled any more than
Right.
Twitter. You know what I mean? Twitter, you know. So uh, I didn't know how they died, and I'm like, okay, they killed his daughter, and then I'm like, they're my babies are gone. I'm like, wait, she's dead? Like I sat right there going like. I was right up on the screen too, Brandon, because when we go to the screens, I was on the screen with 3D, and I'm like, which was
Right.
a fucking pain, but I was like, all right, man, like, she's dead for real? Like, and I'm sitting there going around, I'm like, how long? I mean, was that a Navi bow, dude? Like,
Right.
like, where she does the invert pull, boosh, And so at the end, that people asked him about the bow, and he's like, or Jeff Goldsmith brought it up about the bow. Twitter and the internet, complain about the bow, and he's like, well, perhaps the physics on the bow are not, accurate, but, and
Just
I'm
a
like,
little bit.
perhaps, like, dude, you guys got $200 million, Bryan Singer's been on that. I got Oscars for Usual Suspects. He's made fucking Academy films. Simon Kinberg successfully fucking crawled his way out of Triple X2 and fucking X-Men 3 into, first class fucking, he produced The Martian. You know what I mean? He's the one who made Deadpool actually happen. He was able to get that finally going.
Hmm.
Like he wrote fucking Days of Future Past. Like he's not he does work on Rebels and Star Wars. He's not a shit fucking writer. Is he the world's greatest screenplay dude? No, he's just a solid guy, when he's on a comic, can produce a fun story, right?
Hmm.
So it's like this is the best you can think of. Then he doesn't need a family. He
Right.
doesn't need a family. Like there really should have been like, okay, and they asked him again about the political, like, so they got a discussion about how X-Men First Class takes place in the 60s, Days of Future Past takes place in the 70s, this is in the 80s, and the question was brought up, perhaps maybe the next film doesn't need to jump 10 years. Maybe
Right.
it could just stay in the 80s. And also, why have the politics of the era become less and less important throughout each of these films?
Yeah.
Because in the 60s it was big, Cuban Missile Crisis. In the 70s, kind of the end of Vietnam, Watergate. And then now, nothing other than some couple songs and some video footage and a picture of Reagan on the fucking wall. I mean, even the TV show, the Star Trek episode wasn't from the 80s. It wasn't like they were watching Alf and shit or 18.
Even like if they didn't have the poofy hair and the neon colors, I wouldn't know they were in the 80s. I had no
You
idea.
don't know the world they live in. And he goes, well,
No.
that's because, and he gives us an interesting answer. He says, well, that's because at the end of Days of Future Past, the future's been changed, right? So now you're in a world where post that movie, we probably just didn't have just the Cold War. You have this mutant faction. But I'm like, yeah, but that's what you're supposed to fucking sit down and explain.
Right? How are we supposed to know that shit?
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, that's the whole. That's your job, like to explain the fucking world. So he goes, well, these are more operatic now. Like the X-Men movies are more operatic, and the Deadpool films or whatever are more comical. I'm like, I think you should stop with the opera and the Shakespeare for a second. Just time out, motherfucker, and stick to like this is an X-Men film, man. Like,
Right.
and I hate to say it, but like, there's like a billion fucking cool X-Men comics out there you can pull from. And quite frankly, you create a film in which Magneto basically said, I got the Brotherhood now. You know what I mean? And we're now a fucking force to be reckoned with. And Professor Xavier should be actively built. He already quit being an X-Man, and then he's going to build the team. So they should have had the team. He should have been training these kids already. And then this movie needed a protagonist, a way in through to the world, okay, to
Hmm.
explain all this. And that person was fucking Cyclops. Because they already did it with Wolverine in X-Men 1. They tried to do it again with Jean Grey in X-Men 3, right? We got enough Jean Grey.
Hmm.
So this is finally where they can make this a Scott Summers story, which would have been the perfect thing given the end cap fucking teaser thing at the end of this movie, right?
Right. Perfect. Yeah, because I mean, we could talk about the end
Yeah,
cap because
talk
it's such a
about it.
spoiler review. The Essex Corp, which whatever they wanted to call it, is basically Mr. Sinister, who is obsessed with taking Scott Summers and Jean Grey's genes and making the perfect mutant because he feels they are the two perfect mutants. And the fact that he shows up and takes Wolverine's blood means they're just probably going to try to wiggle in an X-23 type character into the next movie bullshit instead of, I don't know, him somehow getting Scott Summers' blood or Jean Grey's blood off maybe one of the wreckage sites from all that disasters and fighting. It just,
Like, imagine at the front of the film is Cyclops, right? He finally has that moment where his powers manifest and he nearly kills a kid. And then he's in trouble with the law. Okay, he's dragged off to the principal office. The police show up to the school. It's almost like a Columbine, 18 years too early. You know what I mean? It's not intentional though. It's an accident.
right,
All this. Then that's where you bring up the tension that they're in a Cold War, but instead of Russia versus America, the Cold War is humans versus mutants. We're in this point where they're not actively fighting one another, but we know they're arming. You know, we know like the humans got to be preparing for this, and the mutants they're up to something because Magneto's running loose. You know,
right,
and now Scott Summers is I don't know what to do, and this Essex dude could fucking show up. You know,
right,
like we're gonna take him. Maybe he's working with Stryker. We can take these fucking kids. And it looks like he's done. But his parents are like, we don't want anything more to do with this shit. We already had one kid. And then the person who saves him is his brother. You
right.
know, like no, I'm gonna come in and take him to a school and help him.
I
You
mean,
know,
they could have introduced Genosha or the
but the
Friends of
way through this
Humanity.
movie, you gotta find fuck Brandon. I'm telling you, when you start giving things labels like Genosha, all these other things, they just become useless words out in the ether sphere. You have to latch on to a character, okay? You
Mhm.
have to latch on. You have that has to be the character you go through the experience with. And the core of this story really could have been the bond between Scott and his brother, you know? And that
Yeah,
transference of the older 60s, 70s X-Men to this movie universe 60s, 70s X-Men, not the one we grew up with, right? Not the fucking whatever. To this one, you know, to
yeah.
the Scott, Jean, you know, Nightcrawler,
The
80s era.
the Havoc and like the Havoc death scene,
Pointless.
pointless. And what pissed me off is
Should have been there at the very end.
you have Quicksilver, the scene, from Days of Future Past, who has that great slow motion scene, and it's like they took it and just made it so comical and stupid. It reminded me of like The Mask, when Jim Carrey's going between cop to cop, dancing with him, kissing him,
Oh, you're talking about
doing a roast.
The Quicksilver scene, right?
Yes, the
Yeah, the
Quicksilver
Quicksilver.
scene where
Well, that was second unit. Bryan Singer didn't even direct that. That's second
that was
unit.
horrible.
And it's a parody of the point of the Quicksilver scene from the first movie was they had to get Magneto out. So
Mhm.
initially in the script it was Juggernaut they were going to drop. But then it was brought up, why don't we have, Quicksilver, who also turns out to be his kid? That'd be a cool character, and then we can do they had this whole idea for the time lapse and slowing things down, and that made it so they're simultaneously accomplishing a story goal, right? They got to get Magneto out,
Right.
while also showing you this person's powers, right? Which is what that works. Days of Future Past, that works. That's what you want like a fight sequence to do. That's a
Right.
fight sequence, right? This is he shows up and it's a joke. It drags on way too long, dude. It just
Oh,
keeps
way too
going.
long.
Then he's got a dog and the dog's eating pizza and everyone's kind of like, "Ha ha, that's funny." And I'm like, they're not going to think this is funny like a month or two from now when it
No.
settles in. It's just it's just not it's almost like we don't know how to write ourselves out of the situation. So, oh, boom, here you go.
My wife said it killed the movie right there for her. She was like she was kind of she was okay with it at first. She wasn't loving it, but she was okay with it.
Well,
And she's like, as soon as that scene happened, she's like, I'm done. She's like, do you want to leave? And I
well
was like,
here's
no,
the
we're gonna
here,
sit through it.
here's the other problem. He waited 10 years.
Yeah,
He waits 10. You're telling me after the events of Daisy, this character waits 10 years to
the
just
most
decide to go.
impatient, fast.
The most impatient guy in the world decides to go look for his dad 10 years later. Do
Right.
we all believe that to actually be true?
He moves so fast that time is basically paused. I'm pretty sure he could cover the globe in at least 3 days and look every spot for
Look,
Magneto.
the mutants have powers. And I always felt like Superman, those powers should be constrained within physical exertion. Okay?
Yes.
Magneto
Yes.
can use magnet, fucking raise metal, whatever, but he can only do it so much as I could fucking constantly lift boxes all day.
Right.
Right? And in this movie, they brought up the fucking thing I hate the most, Brandon. His energy's been depleted. They said that shit. Guys, this is the reason why I don't fucking watch Dragon Ball Z. I don't care about energy meters. Okay? I don't need them in a video game. You know,
Yeah.
somehow I played all of Uncharted 4 and never once had to have a power bar. Okay? I get in a fighting game, there's an energy meter because you're competing against one other person and you kind of want to see where you stand.
Yeah.
Okay? Other than that, I don't need that. And I really fucking don't want it in the middle of an X movie. He should just be, I'm too tired, I can't do anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucking like, but they don't explain how those powers work. They don't explain that. If Scott had then gone to the school and then they explain how those powers work, right? Or you at
Yeah.
least lay down some ground law, then later on in the movie, when things happen, you know why.
Yeah.
But they just don't, man. They never do. And I don't think they ever sat in a fucking room and say, here's how it's going to be. I think they make it up, almost like they forget with every movie. I don't know what we did last time. Oh, fucking X-Men. What other powers we got? And then they keep amplifying the powers to the point where now they got a character who amplifies powers for them. So,
Right.
you know, it's just like it becomes meaningless. Superman's so powerful now he can't, you know, like unless Superman becomes like Saitama, where he's so powerful, he's like just I touch you and you explode, you know, and it's kind of like, oh, that's a
Right.
bummer. It's just venture. It isn't far enough to be in parody, but it's definitely that sweet spot of I don't give a shit zone.
It's a parody of itself for me. I thought it was
Well, I'll tell
just
you what makes it a
mocking.
parody at this point. It's not so much the story; it's the fact that now I feel they're designing these powers so they can get their 3D out of the film. Now, I want everyone to know now I am a big supporter of 3D cinema.
Me too.
Okay, I fucking own a grip of them. When done well, even conversions like Titanic's fucking awesome 3D. The Top Gun, dude. If you haven't ever seen that conversion, awesome 3D. Coraline, all stop motion animation films need to be in 3D because they're fucking amazing. But this is a film that betrays everything about 3D and just becomes the biggest gimmick. Like when they zoom in on a bumblebee. And it's like,
Yeah.
here's the bumblebee. Why am I fucking. I just time it 1, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. I start counting the seconds. Like, that's time they could have spent in the mall, man. You know, I get the mall's not a big 3D gimmick, but you know, and then when Jean Grey drops her papers, they go into 3D.
Yeah.
You know, and they're slowing down. Why is time slowing down for her? Or did she pause it? But it feels like the same effect that when Quicksilver slows down, or you know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's just three. Or when they throw a bunch of box crates come off a bridge in 3D. Ooh, the box crates. Here, imagine like all my markers just start flying around. Ooh, 3D. You know. Have you ever been to Disneyland? They used to have this Muppet show that's gone now, right? And it was called Muppets 3D. And you put on the 3D glasses, and it was when they first started doing polarized 3D, right? The chef goes, "Hoo doo 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 in 3D," you know, and starts throwing shit at the fucking camera, like the screen, "Happy doo 3D," you know, just starts throwing stuff. That's what I think of when they do that shit. You know, like all that stuff moving around, Magneto doing those crazy fucking shit with the metal is just a 3D effect. It's like when they let, you know, an image artist write a story and they don't actually want to write anything, they just draw a bunch of pinups and then they kind of work a story around it. And you've got a whole comic book filled with these crazy pinups, you know? That's what the movie feels like,
Yeah.
you know? It's just 60 scripts, so you don't know. Movie scripts are 1 page equals 1 minute. So generally, you're looking at about 120 page, 90 to 120 pages for a movie script. It's typically in a film, 90 minutes to 120 minutes, okay? This feels like, even though it's a 120-minute film, it's 2 hours long, it feels like a 60-page, 90-page script dragged out. An extra 60 minutes with just useless filler, you know? I mean, did they really fly from a helicopter from New Hampshire or whatever, fucking Massachusetts to Canada? And then they went back they went to Cairo. I don't know, man. You know, like none of the logic, and even the violence, the Wolverine violence is cartoony. Like the whole film has, you know, X-Men 2, they go to the big bunker in Alaska for the first time in an X-Men movie, right?
Hmm.
It's got like acid etched walls. You know, it's grimy. It's got shadows. There are no shadows in this film, man. Even in like Jean Grey's room in the middle of the night, which is weird when a guy who's like in his mid 30s walks into a 16-year-old girl's bedroom in the middle of the night. Just sorry, folks, it looks weird to me. Uh, you know, like
Yeah.
even that
Yeah.
is barely in
It was
shadow.
weird.
It was weird, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe that's why he could have already had Storm there, and he's like, hey, And Storm can check in, and she goes, "Come on, Professor. She can. Don't you think he should have?
A female type
You
character
don't have to
that
have Storm in Cairo. She could already be there." And then, because Storm and Cyclops led the X-Men in God Loves Man Kills.
well, it's
And
because
Magneto had to come in and save him.
everybody in this movie hasn't aged, even though it's been 20 years
Oh, they
since
make
the first
jokes
X-Men
about that.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, she
well,
was
that's
good
what I'm
for her
saying.
age.
But
Well, the only reason why they moved the film 10 years is because Bryan Singer came with this idea. Why don't we just have you will be a period? He even said it 100 times, dude, over and over. He said these are period films. Only now we're not going to show you the period. I wanted to, honest to God, folks, I wanted to ask this question, but I was afraid it would just be a waste of people's time. In this world, in Rocky 4, was it Rocky versus a mutant? Like it should have been
that's
though, right?
stupid.
I look, you laugh, but that could have been what was on TV instead of an old Star Trek episode. It could have been Rocky versus Colossus.
I get you.
You see what I'm saying? At least that would make sense for this universe.
Yeah.
We could have been a Russian mutant. Now it
There
goes
was
against
no. There
Rocky.
was
So
no.
now it's a Russian mutant versus a human American.
Besides Magneto's scene where they want to lynch him because he's Magneto, you didn't really get a vibe of how the world
What
perceives
if
mutants.
what if Russia was harboring Magneto? That just changes the whole movie. Right? Like, wow, think about it. So he dropped in the White House, and now Russia is harboring Magneto in the 80s.
Right.
And we can't go to war with them because they have a new superpower mutants, stockpiled. And now we got our human, the Americans are maybe venturing on the human side of things.
Right.
Because, we all have, because if you're still going to use the social, the blacks versus whites 60s civil rights issue as a metaphor for the mutants, in American politics, then in this era, that could still be going on. So the Americans wouldn't side with the mutants. They'd have, what's his face? Stryker, you
Uh,
know. And they already tried to make mutants with Deadpool and shit. That didn't work out for them. Like they could even
no.
allude to that. Like we tried to make our own, don't work. So now we got this technology where we can fucking disable mutants and shit, and we got our own, like X. We got our own X Force. It could be the prototypical X Force, right? Where it's not good. There's like a Strike Force. I'm fucking dude. Man, Brandon. I wish I could just sit in a room, and just be like, perhaps the universe is more interesting, right? Than just, oh wow, now Moira McTaggart's pretending she's Indiana Jones and she just stumbles into a room and leans against the wall, whoop, and then light comes in and creates apocalypse. Like that, come on, dude. Like you can't. This is fucking 2016, man. I just saw a movie in which Giant Man fought Spider-Man and the
It worked.
Falcon, and it was way, way more realistic than this film, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that is crazy, dude. Like, I feel, Brandon, I feel that given that Deadpool and X-Men Apocalypse have come out this year from Fox, that I am living as a comic book fan in the scene from the first Matrix movie where Agent Smith sits down with Neo and says, one of these lives has a future, Mr. Anderson, and one of them doesn't. You know?
Yeah.
And this is almost like a concession of trying to make things more humorous in this film when Bryan Singer doesn't get funny,
No.
folks. Okay? He doesn't get funny. He has admitted to it. You can go see interviews with Ian McKellen when they were making X-Men 3, and he was saying things like, every day on set with Brett Ratner is a party. Brett is such a party guy. He's such a people person. You would not want to go to a party with Bryan Singer, like with Bryan. That wouldn't be fun. He's just not, he's not that, guys. That's why Superman had him crying outside a window, and it was really depressing.
Yeah.
It wasn't dark and gritty. It was just monotonous and depressing, you know?
Very much so.
And this film is like, we threw purple coloring now in here for no reason. I don't know why they colored in purple, But it's colorful. It's colorful. It got superpowers. I mean, why was the fight between Gandalf and Saruman in the Fellowship of the Ring more intense than a battle against Apocalypse?
If he didn't, it was a waste. It was a waste of my
Waste.
favorite villain. It was just like I said, he was a motivational speaker. All he did was he amped up these other mutants to do shit, and then he just stood. He walked the whole movie. He just walked slowly, raised his hands, said some shit, and that was it. And he's just like, "You're better than you really are." He was like a really good personal trainer for the mutants.
You
He was
know,
just like,
you should have had this thing where Magneto's setting up his brotherhood in Russia, America's siding on fucking, American ingenuity. Professor X is like, plan for the worst, hope for the best, plan for the worst scenario. You know what I mean? Like he's building a
right,
mutant that will be able to, bridge the gap between the two. And then Apocalypse, all they had to do is we found a pyramid in Gaza, and we're bringing it up, and there's all this cool shit, and they unleash Apocalypse. You know?
yeah,
And he shows up, and then people start. He could create a mutant mecha down there, take over Egypt, and be like, "Come, all my children, come to me. If you can survive down here, you know what I mean. You will fucking be, and we will rule this earth." And now the powers have to deal with this, you know. But it's
right.
like Apocalypse is such a big character. Like he's a multi-movie character. He's not a villain of the week, dude. This isn't Buffy, man. This isn't Buffy, dude. This is not. Oh, well, this week we're gonna be fighting Apocalypse. Do, 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 do. Like
It's almost like they put him in the movie just so Bryan Singer could have Jean Grey use the Phoenix Force.
well, she was gonna do that in any movie. They didn't do Age of Apocalypse because they just did a time travel alternate future movie, and
Yeah,
so they can't do that twice. I'm like, but you could do that a movie or two from now. Make it the third part. Didn't you hyper focus? Make 3 films. This is going to be the new X-Men Cyclops when they're kids, Jean Grey. When they do that third film, they try to undo whatever happens in Phoenix. Star Phoenix appears in movie 2. They try to undo it by going back to the past, and they kill Professor Xavier on accident and create Age of Apocalypse in movie 3. You know?
yeah, but that
But
won't happen.
fuck, dude. I mean, like, Brandon, it's not a bad movie. It's just a waste.
I thought it was a bad movie. I give it a,
Yeah, well, no,
I give
Brandon,
it
a
like
bad film is Batman versus Robin. Like, I have to go back to this. This would be consistent within the comic book world. A bad movie is Elektra. That's an unwatchable piece of shit. You know, Ghost Riders 1 and 2. Just fucking try to watch Ghost Rider, man, with the crazy tilted angles all the time. Like that's unfucking. This is just like, really, dude.
it's
How
just not
long is this
necessary.
shit?
Nothing changes. Nothing for this movie. If this movie, if I never saw it and I saw X-Men: Days of Future Past and whatever movie they make next, I would have never known there was a movie in between. I
Yeah.
bet.
It's just a
It just
waste of 200. They spent $200 million to keep the X-Men license. And being that a $50 million film just made 800 globally, they paid off for them.
yeah.
But it's a shame.
And just to retouch this topic from earlier that I wrote down that did bum me. When Havoc died, and she's like, Scott shows up, and he's like, "Where's my brother?" Quicksilver's like, "No, I don't know. I thought I got everybody." Like so nonchalant, and then it's like, then Cyclops is crying, his brother's dead.
Well, here's another question I got for you. Is it Bryan Singer's mandate that in every film Cyclops cry? Because like when I was a kid, Cyclops was Michael Biehn from Terminator 1. The future's not set, Sarah. You gotta fight. You gotta get up, soldier. That was Cyclops to me. And when he took over X-Men, my only complaint about that first X-Men film, I was like, look, yeah, the fight sequence on the Statue of Liberty is a little hokey, but Cyclops is like kind of like a wuss.
Yeah,
I don't know if Cyclops, fucking Josh Duhamel from Transformers One is a better badass than Cyclops. And then when they put Professor Xavier in his head and he's crying and trying to, I'm like, is this a gimmick? And then they killed him. I was like, fuck, like for real, dude. And then they brought him back in the last one. I'm like, well, okay, that was a good way to bring him back because he got a little one up on Wolverine. I'm like, finally, Cyclops gets a little love, and now he's crying again. I'm just like, stop, dude. Like, okay, his brother would die, but if we had seen him hang out with his brother, if his brother perhaps had taken him to the mall,
anything like it just his brother showed up, and for maybe fans that didn't know they were brothers, that you wouldn't know that. It was just like, "Hey,
maybe
brother."
Magneto would have known their brothers. Maybe they could have seen the family, like the Havoc could have died saving his brother, and Magneto that could have woken up. Like, fuck, dude. There's just so many things, man. It needs. Look, back to formula. To quote a
I thought
famous
Havoc.
villain, right? Back to formula. That's what
I
this
thought
movie needed.
I thought Havoc was dead from the last movie because they didn't. After First Class,
Well,
they were
Brandon,
like, "Oh, people died," so I didn't even know.
If you
Havoc
don't
was
see a
alive.
body, and did we see a body? No. I
No.
fear Havoc will become Mr. Sinister.
I don't think he'll be Mr. Sinister, but I think he will be
Oh,
used by Mr. Sinister.
you're
He'll
giving
be
these
one of his
people way too
henchmen.
much credit. You know,
Well, because they already have the Essex Corps. Well, maybe
Brandon, you're
okay,
assuming
yeah,
they even know what that means.
yeah. So
Look, I mean, they asked Kimberg, would Sinister be a character who given his relationship to Deadpool, all that Weapon X program, all that shit now, is it a character who could exist across multiple movies? And he'd say, I can't answer that, but you would be a smart person. Is Mr. Sinister really a bad guy who should be in multiple films?
no,
No. So I'm telling you,
he's a background player.
yeah. He's a horseman of apocalypse
Yes.
in Age of Apocalypse. So, yeah. Yeah.
I won't watch it again. I'd watch Days of Future Past again. Definitely watch X Men First Class again. I wouldn't watch this movie again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm done with it.
It's not rewatchable. There's nothing about it that makes me go, that was awesome. No part of it.
It's a bummer.
None of it.
It's a bummer.
I just,
It's a bummer.
I think the only thing that changed in this movie was Xavier's hair. That's it. No one else grew. Xavier lost his hair, and the mansion blew up. Just to say the mansion.
Ah,
Blew
but then
up.
they fixed it.
Yeah,
Look,
because
the mansion
apparently,
blowing up means as much to me as them blowing up the fucking Enterprise at this point.
well, apparently Jean Grey is a carpenter because she knew how to rebuild an entire house with somewhat help of Magneto. I don't know how that shit happens, but whatever.
Yeah, and they cut out the mall.
Yep, no mall for you.
One fucking reason I wanted this movie was to go to the mall. And he's like, we cut out the mall, and Kyle's looking at me. I'm like, oh.
I just wanted to see my favorite villain be the badass villain he's supposed to be, and nope, he wasn't. He fucking sucked, in my opinion, and I know that there'll most likely never be another movie version of Apocalypse, at least not for another however long it takes.
Yeah. Well, I like the fallout from this is Bryan Singer says he's taking a break from X-Men for a while. He was already taking a break. He was going to go off and make 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. He'll go and make 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, come back and make this. But we're going to have to wait another 4 years for an X-Men film when that happens. And so in the meantime, the New Mutant movie will get made, or X-Force will get made. You know,
Or
don't count on
Wolverine,
Gambit.
Old Man
Oh,
Logan.
Kimber did say Gambit was originally in the script, but they felt that with Channing Tatum, it wouldn't be enough for the caliber of his talent to put him in as a cameo. And I'm like, see, again, you're not getting it. You know?
Yeah.
And he kept talking about Raven and how important she was, and I'm like, fucking, she is the least important character in the X-Men universe. Her only importance for me is that she was made a great henchman to Magneto. I thought they had a great relationship because of Ian McKellen pulling that one off, with fucking Rebecca Romaine. And she's Nightcrawler's mother. Now that ain't happening. Like who's his fucking mother?
And I wish Mystique would have morphed into someone who could show emotion in this movie. She was so boring.
Oh, everyone knows
and
I know everyone's talked about that. Everyone knows she
it was
phoned it in. Everyone
just
knows. Everyone knows she phoned it in.
I'm not your hero. Don't look up to me, kid. Okay, one time I was scared, but I'm fine.
The worst, no, for me, the worst is when Jean Grey goes, your brother cared very much for you. He thought you might be able to change the world. I'm like, he should say that to his brother. I don't want to hear someone that doesn't know this character or his brother, to fucking, I don't, I
Yeah.
just don't. This isn't what you don't, it's classic storytelling, dude. You don't, um, unless it's Alec Guinness telling Luke Skywalker your father was in the Clone Wars. You got to be very careful about, especially when the character doesn't know the other character.
Yeah.
It would be like, your brother telling me, something my cousin felt about me. Like, it doesn't, what? Could you imagine? Your
Yeah.
little brother comes up and tells me about something my cousin thought about me. Like, it wouldn't mean it. How do you know? Like, really? Well,
Right.
I'm a psychic. I'm like, I don't know. No, for real? Like, I don't know you. Like, stop. Like, you're cute, but you're fucking hella
and
creepy now. Like, go
and
away.
it's like then I'm just like, do you want a hug? Do you want to? No. All right.
You
We're
know.
good.
So there you go. It's just it's a movie that misses every mark, and it's not It's still better than every Fantastic Four film ever made. So You know.
Right.
Oh, I want to leave on this. We'll wrap this up. So Kinberg was talking about. They asked Kinberg if he ever thought about, because he executive produces now and he writes, and would he ever think about if directing one, and two, if he did, would it be a film such as this, a big film like this, or a smaller independent thing? And he said something very interesting. He said, well, he never intended to be an executive producer or a director when he was in film school, but he got into writing. He likes producing because he gets to work with multiple writers, and writing's kind of a pain for him. So he said that directing is something he'd be definitely interested in because he's worked with a lot of great talent. He knows what they're up against. He likes working with actors, and that if he did do something, it would be like this. It'd be something like this because that's what he's known for, and it would have to be something that he was so compelled by it. He felt that he wouldn't want to hand it to someone else to do.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, dude, it's in the 80 percentile mark for me that this guy is going to take a shot at directing Fantastic Four Part 2. Because who's the only guy championing that film staying at Fox?
Right.
He's the only one right now going out saying, no, we got to do, the tone needs to be more fun. And I'm like, you made two fun, entirely fucking stupid, retarded fucking Fantastic Four films, They were totally fun. Remember that? And remember when Mr. Fantastic was doing the fucking woo,
dancing out on the
yeah.
the model.
That's not it, Simon. Like, I like the dude, but everybody has only so much they can. When it comes to stories, there's only so many great stories a person could tell. Not everyone gets to be Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman or fucking hell, even J.K. Rowling, who could write multiple Harry Potter books and fucking knock it out of the park every time,
Right.
Most creative types, do pretty good work, knock it out of the park a few times, amazing, and then they're going to produce some shitters because statistically we all have to. That's reality.
Right. We all can't hit home runs every time.
But in a movie universe, it doesn't have to be one guy. Bring some female writers in, man. Bring some other talent. Fuck, give Max Landis. Shit, anybody, dude. Like this is the same people, and now they're making the same movie to the point where they're just inserting clips from other films of their movies to now fill the movie with something.
I'd watch, with the new X-Men they just introduced, I'd watch a young teenage Max Landis X-Men movie.
He's the guy who could put Goop in an X-Men movie and make it work.
Right.
Right? Or even Beak. Some of those mutants that, like, what happens to the mutants that have no powers? That would have been a beautiful thing to bring in from the Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, whatever.
Right. Nobody on the campus looked fucked up or pink or
like
purple. Nothing different about
Magneto
them. They
can't
all
do
just
anything
look
with
like
Beak.
regular kids.
Yeah, Magneto can't do anything with Beak. Fucking
Yeah.
Apocalypse would just have him murdered because he's too weak. So Xavier goes, "You come to me. Bring your poor and your restless. Bring them
Right.
to me. We have a home here.
There wasn't any diversity in the look or powers or anything. I mean, there just wasn't anything. And you're right. Like somebody like a Max Landis, after seeing Chronicles, like that the main person is just kind of like a weaker, picked on kid, troubled. He would get the teenage kids of dealing with powers and dealing with looking different and maybe
They need
rebelling.
fresh blood, man.
Shake it up.
Put Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise needs to produce these films, man. Say what you want. Every Mission Impossible movie's gotten better. Who'd have thought?
I'll take at this point.
JJ can do it.
Let Kevin Smith direct. the
JJ
next
is
one.
the Rock when it comes to producing films. You put Rock in a movie, it gets better, right? You want to save
Yeah.
a franchise, you put The Rock in there. Get JJ Abrams in, he'll fucking help you out. Like, they just need new blood, dude.
Yeah.
They need a wealth of ideas. They need Dan Trachtenberg to come in. They need
That could
fucking-
actually be the name of the next X-Men movie. X-Men: New Blood.
versus this one, X-Men filler.
Yeah. X-Men: Things Happen.
X-Men filler. Like, that's, I mean, for real, dude, that's, oof. It's a big waste of my fucking night. But that being said, it was cool to hear Simon talk about his writing process and everything else. I don't want to spoil that stuff. Go subscribe to Jeff Goldsmith's The Q&A, When it comes out and he puts it up next week, listen to it. He's got a ton of other great ones in there. He's even got one with Max Landis when he did Mr. Right. They had him in a few weeks ago. I was at the Dan Trachtenberg one. I mixed the Max Landis one because I was on my anniversary, my wedding anniversary. I tried. My wife was like, "You are not leaving me to go listen to Max Landis talk." I'm like, oh, God, I gotta go. Like, it's like, can I just pull this one card? She's like, "No, you've pulled enough cards. You have 2 VR sets." I'm like, fuck. She got me on that. She got me. Fuck. Sorry, Max. I'll be there next time, bro. You know, I got a lot of love for that guy. So, all right, Brandon, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at LeadHeavy, LEAD Heavy. And I'm mostly on Instagram, so hit me up on there, leave me comments, or whatever you like.
We got links below in the info. Leave your comments and everything else. As always, folks. Sorry, I inhale a lot of air when I talk. That's how it rolls. As always, subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. I will answer everything. Join me on Instagram daily when I post tons of updates. And then I will be back on in a little bit. We got shit to work on. I don't know what I'm going to draw yet, but we'll be back on here in about 20, 30 minutes doing some stuff. So hang out if you want to see some art. I'm going to be here soon. Talk to y'all later, folks.
Bye-bye.
Brandon should say something.
X-Men, it happened and now it can't unhappen.